Okay, welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buc What You Heard on Twitter. Just remember, you follow me, I'll follow you back. And we are getting geared up for camp. And this is the part of the season that I really get excited about. But again, here we see one of those Buccaneer curses. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I know I touched on it a little bit earlier, testing the audio. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm joined by Michael Pless, my regular co-host, the guy that's been with me that, we've been through the lean years of the 5-win seasons, the 9-win seasons, and some of the poor seasons. So we've endured quite a bit as Bucs fans. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing great, Gene. It's glad to be back on. And just enjoying summer right now. Saw the Avengers, which was awesome. Watched some Motley Crue on Netflix called The Dirt.
That show is awesome.
You guys should check it out. So, yeah, but the Buccaneers. I mean, I'm getting ready for training camp. I'm not really focusing on it too much right now. We just had the draft and really just still processing that, to say the least. And we'll see what happens again. We got some, rookie mini camps and OTAs and stuff like that. And hopefully we just get through it healthy, already having some freak injuries, which is never a good thing.
Bro, this is like deja vu. I don't know if you remember last year, we were looking at this linebacker core last year and we're like, man, this is the strength of this defense. And then lo and behold, you get Kendall Beckwith with that freak injury that he gets. And then on into the season, and you get Quan Alexander with the injury that he got. And then, we haven't even touched on the coaching. So, I mean, it was just a bad situation all the way around last year. And we can only hope that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stay healthy going into camp, going into preseason, and getting ready for the regular season. But again, we're in uncharted waters because you have a different coach. You have a different coaching staff. You have a different coaching philosophy. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays into place. And for those people that feel like the season's lost because JPP, we may not have his services, let's keep in mind that we've got some draft picks here. We've got a new coaching staff. We've got a new coaching philosophy. We've got a new scheme even. So there's a lot of good things that we can kind of look forward to. And wanted to kind of get you to touch on a few of these things because a lot of people feel like, oh, this is just going to be 3-4 defense for 4 quarters. No, you're going to see nickel. You're going to see some of everything here. You're going to see some 4-man fronts. And again, it's don't hedge everything on the 3-4. 3-4 will be a big part of it, but it won't be the end all be all.
Yeah, exactly right. Defensively, the Bucs this year are pretty much going to be a nickel/dime defense. You're gonna have a lot of defensive backs on the field, and that's pretty much why they drafted so many. It's going to be a lot of packages with anywhere from 5 to 7 defensive backs at one time. You're going to have a lot of 3 safety looks, a lot of 4 corners at a time. So they're going to play very aggressive on the outside and very aggressive up the middle. That is going to be their philosophy. Now, with that, comes the higher importance of your defensive line up front. As far as Vita Vea is really going to be a key for this defense. He is pretty much the glue, if you want to say, to this defense in 2019. He's going to have to hold it all together and really step up his play because he's going to make it easier for the Devin Whites, Levante Davids, those guys to get in on blitzes. And then you look at, the outside, edge rushers. Now with the news of JPP, and it's unfortunate, I hope he's just, I hope he's healthy and hopefully this isn't, something that's going to change his life forever. And hopefully he can recover fully from this because, this is bigger than football. It's not, we love to have him back, but let's make sure he's okay as far as health wise and can still live out his life, 100%.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. You look at it, we have some guys that need to step up. You just signed Shaq Barrett. You still have Carl Nassib. You drafted Anthony Nelson. Noah Spence is a guy that really needs, he needs a bounce back year. So these are guys that they, brought in and can utilize. But like you were saying, the 3-4-4-3, you're pretty much going to have 4 or 5 rushers, going in at all the time pretty much. So it's pretty much going to be a 4-man rush at least, or even 5-man rush, sometimes 6, just depending on how many they want to bring. The only difference is you're going to have 3 guys that are on the field, like down linemen, and then you're going to have your 2 guys on the outside standing up, or maybe one goes down and you shift to a 4-man front. So there's a lot of capabilities of this defense, a lot of versatility, a lot of things that are being moving around. It's not a statue kind of defense where you just have guys set in one spot. You're going to have a lot of movement, and it's going to be pretty much designed to confuse the quarterback and cause turnovers. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, most definitely. And again, this is going to be very dependent on everybody playing as a team as a whole. I mean, that's going to be the key right there. And, I know I've touched on this before, and, again, I will touch on it again. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you kind of have to look at like teams like the New England Patriots. New England played as a team, a collective team. The offense had their job. The defense had their job. The one thing that I will say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even from the beginning, is sometimes the defense has been a liability, not being able to hold leads, not being able to do what they needed to do to make things happen. So again, it's just one of those things that Tampa is going to have to. There's got to be improvement. There really does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think, the defense, I think, will actually be okay at, just based on, the aggressiveness that they're going to play. It's going to be a lot more, forcing the quarterback to get the ball out quicker. That could lead to turnovers. And also, they're pretty much going to blitz and really force the quarterback either to the outside, and that's where your edge rushers will eat and, get sacks and tackles. But, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a different style of defense. It's going to be more attacking, and you're going to have the chance to really force turnovers. And that's what you got to do in this league, because it's really hard to stop offenses consistently, especially with the rules and how they play the game now. So you got to be able to force turnovers, and you got to be able to make big plays on third down. And I think that's, that's something that we can look forward to this year in 2019. I'm actually, to be honest, I'm more concerned with the offense than I am the defense. I think the defense is actually, in good hands, and they actually played pretty well towards the end of last year, especially with the new style that they were playing. And I think, they have the pieces. And then, looking at the offense, I'm concerned because the offensive line is still the same. And, your running game is still a big question mark. You don't know what you have there. Yeah, Peyton Barber is decent, but, if he goes down, you don't really know what you have. So, and then, receivers and tight ends look strong, but, if Jameis doesn't have time to throw the ball, then it's pretty much going to be the same story. You're going to have turnovers, and you're going to have, inconsistencies in the red zone. And that's what wins games. You got to be able to score points. And, you can look at us and say we scored 24 points last year, and that's okay. That's solid. Your defense gave up 26 a game, but, our offense wasn't that great. They only averaged, I think, about 20 points in the last half of the season. Red zone offense was always an issue, as we know. And then turnovers was probably the biggest killer of the season. And that's probably why we're 5-11 again instead of, maybe 8-8 or 9-7.
Now let me ask you this.
Yeah,
just out of curiosity, what your thoughts are on this. When you looked at Peyton Barber, what did you because I didn't consider that this coaching staff committed to the run. And that was the one thing that kind of frustrated me. There were games where the Bucs had the game well in hand, and they really needed that running game to run out the clock and put them in a position to win games. And I just felt like the schemes were not set up to where they really utilized the running game. And I don't know if they just didn't trust Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones, or they wanted to lean more towards the passing game. What are your thoughts when you go back and look at game film from some of these games? in which the Bucs should have won handily, but they ended up being close games.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with Peyton Barber. I think he's a pretty solid back. I think he's a guy that can do it all. And, the coaching staff is pretty much saying that a lot of the problems last year was communication and being on the same page, and that goes for both sides of the ball. So that's something they're going to have to be better at. And that's why they think this offensive line is going to be better, because they're going to have them on the same page and they're going to utilize them more to their strengths as far as a power running scheme and really going north and south. So I can see maybe that's why they didn't really add much to it. And maybe they really feel like, these guys can be better with better coaching. And, personally, I just feel like they're putting too much eggs in one basket. You're really depending on your coaching staff to really be, miracle workers here. And I think there is talent on that offensive line. I think they can be good. And maybe they just did need a new voice, because, George Warhop, has gotten a lot of slack over the years, and maybe he was the real issue. And now you bring in Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert, and it looks like they're going to have, accountability in the room and really get these guys to, take that next step. Now we'll see. But I'm still concerned because, you can see the problem was the right side, and you just really didn't add much to it.
Yeah.
And, me and my friend Mark, who we do the other podcast on at Real Bucs Talk, it's like
RealBucsTalk.com.
If Ali Marpet goes down, I mean, what do you have? I mean, you don't have much, right? You're pretty much in a hole. If Ali goes down, then you have to move people around. And I guess you could say that with any team if they lose key offensive line starters, but we just don't have the depth,
and Mike, I think we touched on this prior to going live. The Bucs have done this. They did this at wide receiver. Right. They did this at tight end. They did this at defensive line. They did this at cornerback. They would get players, and they're comfortable with the players they have. One player goes down, then another player goes down, and then here you are. You're in sort of a bad situation. And then the following season, you go in and dump a lot of resources into replenishing that problem spot instead of spreading it over the team as a whole. Now, me personally, I'm not a general manager. I'm not a head coach, but this is an outsider looking in on this team. And I see a lot of deficiencies that could have easily been addressed in the draft because you didn't have the resources for free agency to do that. I understand that.
Right.
But again, you're putting a lot of weight on that offensive line. Now, that being said, the one thing that I can enjoy is that we haven't heard the word experiment with the offensive line. We haven't heard this word, we're going to try this. And I think these are things that I'm happy that I'm not hearing. I'm hearing that, hey, you play this position. This is your strength. This is where we're going to use you. This is your strength. This is where we're going to use you. No, let's take a Pro Bowl right guard and move him to center. Let's, and I'm telling you, right guards are like gold. And you've got a guy that can play this position, and you want to move him all over the line. I don't agree with that, and I think there's a problem here. There was a fundamental problem. So it's good to have, as I mentioned before, competent coaching, competent teachers that can come in and help these guys and utilize them and get the most out of them in order to put them in a position to win. And that's just something that we haven't seen. The idea that you're experimenting with the offensive line instead of getting the most out of your guys at a place where they can play at their best, and then you focus on getting players that can come in and play in another position at their best where they're naturally accelerating at. I think that's the logical way you would build an offensive line. But just experimenting year in and year out it was frustrating. I really don't know. I don't have another way to really describe it, because I mean, you've got Caleb Benenoch playing over here and playing in a position he really has no business playing in. No,
I agree. And yeah, that's why I'm concerned, because it's like, you saw the offensive line play, and you can sum it up to, like they're saying, is communication, not being on the same page, not being utilized the right way, maybe having guys out of position, like you said, with Caleb Benenoch, who now is, moving to right tackle. Kappa, it looks like he is the front runner to be a right guard. You have you brought in Earl Watford from Arizona and Chicago, who has experience in this scheme. Evan Smith, you still have on the roster, but you don't know what he's going to bring. He's coming off of 2 hip surgeries, or he had his hip, surgery. So you just really don't know who your, starters or really your depth guys are going to be when it comes to that right side, and then you look at the left side, and, if one of those guys go down, then you have to play shuffle again and look at practice squad guys or guys off the street. And that's something that, this team unfortunately has had to do over the last couple of years.
Historically, that's what they've ended up doing. I mean, after game 3, when they get out to a red hot start, then you get an injury, then you get another injury, and then you're going to getting guys off the couch to bring them into play. They've never actually addressed depth in key positions like the defensive line or like the offensive line. It just has not happened. So again, you kind of have to trust the process to see, hey, what are they going to do? But just as you mentioned before yourself, and you're absolutely right, we can go back to looking at the wild card game, all the playoff games, the NFC championships, even the Super Bowl, where it was important to have guys that were good in the trenches to get your team in a position to win. And again, you make a valid point, and we just kind of have to wait and see, but it just doesn't look like the Bucs have addressed that. And again, the roster's fluid. We understand that, but I don't think they've made that a priority to go out and address some of these positions in the trenches.
Yeah, and like you said, the roster is fluid. So, I mean, they could still, make moves coming up here in the next couple months, before the season starts. Guys get let go. There's trades, etc. We still don't know what's going to happen with, the whole Gerald McCoy thing. So there's a lot of things that could go on. There is going to be moves made because obviously they have to create some cap space to sign their rookies. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's going to be some movement coming up within the next couple of months. But, yeah, I mean, I go back to my point earlier, just the overall roster construction. It just seems like there's not a real plan or vision when it comes to this roster. Yeah, direction when it comes to building a roster for this team, and really, not looking at just 2019, but looking down 3 years from now, and really, building a team that can be sustainable and winning. It doesn't seem like that's happening. It seemed like that was the plan a couple years back when Jason Light first got here. I even think he said something like that, where he had one eye on now and one eye on 3 years down the road, but it just hasn't accumulated. It seems like ever since he hired Dirk Cutter, it seems like the process has been always trying to win now, trying to get everything.
It's been reactionary. I think you use that word, reactionary.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of being proactive and really, having a good idea of what you want and how to build a team, stockpiling the key positions, like you said, offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, wide receiver, running back, all those key positions. That's where you have to have depth at. And it just doesn't seem like that has been the plan. And you can even look at this offseason, bringing in a Bruce Arians, in order to, win now. They've gotten some key free agents as far as veterans and, plugging some holes here and there. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to trust this coaching staff because they are proven and they have shown they can get it done before. And, really that's been a problem as well as player development. It really hasn't taken place. And maybe they can develop some of these guys like a Noah Spence, a Vernon Hargraves, maybe some of the offensive line as well. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to be optimistic because, that's what we are as Bucs fans. But yeah, exactly. That's that's my nitpicking.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this. I touched on this earlier today when I was kind of testing the audio. I want to talk about this whole Gerald McCoy thing. And as you know where I stand with Gerald McCoy. If Gerald McCoy gives the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the best chance to win, I'm glad he's on this team. If they move on from him and bring somebody else in that gives the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the best chance to win, I'm good with that too. Now, that being said, Gerald McCoy did himself a disservice by going on Instagram and making that video. You let your play do the talking for you. You don't do the talking for your play. We've seen this year in, year out. Gerald McCoy comes up with this rah-rah speech in the offseason. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Blah, 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 blah. And then when the season comes, he plays good, has some splash plays, nothing consistent. But at the end of the season, he's made plays, and I'm not taking anything away from him. But it wasn't anything compared to the rah-rah speech that he gave at the beginning of the season. What Gerald McCoy needs to do is ignore what people are saying about him, whoever he's playing with, whether it's the Bucs, whether it's the Browns, the Eagles, whoever he goes to, wherever he's playing at, he needs to let his play do the talking. He needs to because I can tell you right now, I had a little sister, and my little sister, when she'd run her mouth and she would talk blah, 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 and then I would tease her and get on her nerves, she would go complaining to my mom. You know what I did? I turned up the damn volume, and I was teasing her even more and more and more. I made it worse. I made her feel miserable because she was running her mouth and going to my mom. So I'm looking at Gerald McCoy. All Gerald McCoy's got to do, hey, go in, work out, get ready, be hungry, go out there, play like you're supposed to play, do what you've got to do, and shut up your critics. But when you're talking for yourself and running your mouth about what all you're doing, don't question this, don't question that, and your play speaks for itself. Tape don't lie. Tape don't lie. So if he's doing good, it's going to speak for itself. And that's all he's got to do. He shouldn't be doing that. He did himself a disservice. I know a lot of people feel like, he needs to speak up for himself. No, his play on the field needs to speak for him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not anything. He can say whatever he wants to the moon. Jameis Winston, same way. Right. Jameis Winston can talk about, I'm doing this. I'm doing Pilates. I'm doing Zumba yoga, hot yoga, or whatever. It don't matter, because when you get out on the field, your play has to speak for you. And that's the end. That's the end all be all right there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm in the same boat. If he's here, great. If he's not, then we move on. It's a business. The NFL is a business, and that's really what it's coming down to. I mean, this is a financial, decision.
Facts.
With him being at 13 million, and I mean, I find it odd that he has to defend himself as far as his critics and stuff like that. He really shouldn't have to. Like you said, if his play is good enough, then he shouldn't really have to say anything to anybody, because like you said, the tape is there. The tape doesn't lie. Now, with that being said, when I watched the tape of him last year, he did lead us in quarterback hits, which is good. I believe he had about 6 sacks again, but there's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of times where he's out of the play. There's a lot of times when he's on the ground. He's not at the level that he used to be. Now, granted, that could be due to the scheme, because that scheme that the Bucs have played in the last couple of years made a lot of defenders worse. So, I mean, we'll see. I still think he's a very solid player, and I would like to have him on the team, but it's going to come down to, financial terms and whatever plays that way. Now with the injury to JPP, that might open the door, because it looks like there are loopholes out of his contract if they want to move on from JPP. If he's really going to be out for the season, and, they feel like, they can put him on the, I think it's like non-football injured list or something like that. Right. They can put him on that list, and they wouldn't have to pay his salary. So, but then again, I'm not sure if they get cap relief from that. So, I mean, it'll be interesting, but I agree with you. I think McCoy should just, focus on what he's got to do and just play the game. You don't have to defend yourself. You've been in this league for, 10 years now. There's really no reason to come out and comment on, what other people are saying.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that made him a target when he created that video. That was probably the worst decision he's made in the offseason. And all I would have done was, hey, as Brent Mulberry said, this is what I would have been like, hey, I'm working out Cinco de Mayo. I'm working out. Everybody be safe. And I have a happy Cinco de Mayo. I'd have left it at that. Yeah. I wouldn't have got petty.
That would have been perfect.
I wouldn't have pointed fingers at anybody. I would have just went on about my business and just got ready for the season. Because again, we've seen this in the past. We've heard talk from people on the defense. This is what we're doing. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to get better. Blah, 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 blah. And you got 10 wins in 2 seasons to show for it. So again, no videos, just go out there and play, get together, get your scheme together, come together as a collective unit on offense and defense of both sides. And let's win some games. Let's look for that NFC South championship. That should be a goal, to win that NFC South championship. Make the Bucs fans proud, that kind of thing. Get ready for the playoffs.
Right.
Those are the things that you really need to be focusing on, not what I'm doing or what I've been doing, or don't talk about my game, because you make this all about you. And it should be about the team as a collective whole.
Right. No, I completely agree. I mean, there's not much more to, add to that. I think, this team has been, down for so long. It's time to, it's time to be accountable. It's time to be focused. They have probably the best coaching staff they had in a while. And we're really going to find out how good this coaching staff is, because like we said earlier, with, the lack of depth at certain positions, and really going to have to make these guys rise above. And the player development with the 2 practices, I think, are going to be very critical. And hopefully you can get some of these guys to kind of overachieve, if you want to say, and really play above their level. And hopefully that can be sustainable for, a 16-game season.
Right. The one thing that I will say that, I know we've been kind of down on Jason Light in this podcast, but the one thing I will say, he's gotten players that can play multifaceted. They can play in different positions.
Right.
And I feel like because they have that, you've got some players that are going to be able to fill in some gaps in other positions because of their abilities, that the reason they were drafted is for being able to play in different positions. So I think that's going to be a plus that we really don't talk about a lot, but I think that could potentially be a plus for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into the season, because we know there are going to be injuries. Don't know how extensive they are. This is the NFL. We are going to have injuries. So hopefully that you will see guys that are able to step up and step into roles that they weren't expected to play in, with the previous coaching staff, but they can come in and actually contribute and help this team win some games.
Yeah, for sure. And a funny thing about this past draft, I think this is the first time Jason Light didn't trade up in the draft. He did trade down. But, I don't mind the players that they got in this draft. I like a lot of them. I think most of them are probably going to be solid players if used correctly and developed properly. But, it's just a resource allocation like we were talking about earlier, and really wish that, there's a little bit more balance throughout the whole roster, and really, be smart as far as, adding, here, one guy here, one guy there,
right,
et cetera. I can understand, the need to add to the secondary, because let's be honest, the secondary has been pretty much atrocious over the last however many years.
It
just hasn't been good enough. And it will be nice to have, some legit talent back there that can really challenge these guys that are currently on the roster. So, guys like VH3 is really going to be challenged. Ryan Smith is going to have to play out of his mind to make the team. MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, all those guys are going to be challenged.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Bruce Arians is not married to him. These are guys, hey, you guys hit the bricks. You guys got to go if you're not doing what you're supposed to. Now,
right.
I do want to chime in. I do want to chime in here. And I'm going to talk historically. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been horrible going back to Bruce Allen when it comes to the draft, when it comes to free agency, landing players that are supposed to come in and contribute, because your first round players are starters. Second round players are starters and contribution. Third, fourth, fifth round players are guys that play for depth, and the rest of the rounds are guys that could potentially make the team, but probably won't. So that's how the draft is supposed to go. But as I look back through the picks that the Bucs have had, going all the way back to Bruce Allen, I would say 2004, they haven't hit a lot of home runs. They have not hit a lot of home runs. They've brought in free agents that have they just haven't panned out. And this is a long time to go without hitting on players. So that's that kind of thing. It builds up. And we look at where Jason Light is now. Jason Light, the cupboard was bare when he came to Tampa. So what he's working with, I mean, I kind of understand sort of, but at the same time, there are decisions that could have been better. Just as an outsider looking back on, hindsight's 2020. But as historically, the Bucs have just been bad. But I think Jason Light has been a little bit better than what we've had from the past two general managers.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I'm still a big Jason Light fan, and a lot of this it comes from, it's not just Jason Light, but it comes from the top as far as ownership. And it really shows how, impatient they have become because they're trying so hard to win now and really, get this team back into relevance and really have a winning season once again and make the playoffs. They know it's been a decade since the team's been to the playoffs, or more than a decade now, but that weighs on them, and it puts pressure on management and et cetera, head coaches to do good things and be successful. So, and that hurts the development of the team as well, because you're firing coaches every 2 years, and you're not really having a chance to develop talent. You're not having a chance to really implement what you want to do as a team, develop identities, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully with this staff that has been brought in, and it looks like it has a couple of, really good quality coaches that could be, head coaches one day, besides Bruce Arians, because, he's probably not going to coach this team forever. I'm sure there's a succession plan in place, or at least I hope. But, with that being said, you need to have a staff in place for at least a couple years, at least 3 to 5 years. They got to be in place and really build what you want to build. Right. The player development has to be there. Guys have to get better from year 1 to year 2, et cetera, year 3 to year 4.
You have to see market improvement.
But the main thing is, once you have, consistency as far as the coaching staff and the GM and the scouting staff, then you can really hone in on what you want as far as the talent group and what you want as far as players at every position. And it makes it easier to really dial in what your roster wants to be like or look like, from year 1 to year 2, et cetera, et cetera. And it gives you a chance to really plan and see, what's coming up down the road. And that way you can always have, depth, or at least try to build depth. And that's just something that just hasn't been able to happen because like I said earlier, they are reactionary, and they've done it, throughout free agency. They've done it in the draft. And really that's what's, get them in trouble. You're drafting for need instead of drafting for best talents at certain key positions. And it's really hurting the team.
Yeah. And you could potentially see your core for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for years to come, just based on how players come out moving forward from this season. I mean, you look at players like Noah Spence. You've got Levante David. You know what you have in Levante David. We still don't know. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best for Kendall Beckwith. Hopefully he can recover, but I just don't see that. I think there's a player that could have potentially been part of this core that I speak of. Devin White is a guy that you definitely hope is part of that core as well. So you've got a lot of players that they're trying to build this nucleus, and once you get that, the defense is no longer a liability, because I'm sorry. I mean, I can go back to Josh Freeman. There have been games where Josh Freeman had the game won in the last 5 to 8 minutes of the game, and the defense turns around and gives up a quick touchdown, and the Bucs are in the hole again. So the defense has just been a liability. There's not been any consistency, I would say, since Simeon Rice left. And it just has not been the same. It hasn't been the same look. There may be a year or two where they look good, but it's just not been consistent. And that's kind of where the Bucs need to get to, is where I'm not expecting a world beater defense like you saw back in the late 90s, early 2000s, just a team that could go out and their job is to stop the offense, get the ball back to your offense so they can go out there and run the clock out. That's what you want to see. And I think that's where the Bucs really need to get to. You can't expect a world beater because, to be honest, your strength is in this offense. That's just kind of how this team has been built through Jason Light, is Jameis Winston, your running game, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, and some of these other players. This is the strength of your team. And we need to accept it as such. And we need to work on the defense, making sure that the defense is consistent and they're not giving up big plays.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. I think the offense, and defense, I think, are still kind of in the middle. They're kind of, I think, offense definitely, I think, needs to take a step forward, but that comes with, consistency as far as in the scheme and what they're being asked to do. Obviously, it goes a lot into what, Jameis is being asked to do and how they utilize him best and really utilize his strengths. But yeah, it's going to start up front, and hopefully, the whole, rotation of the guards and, that's in the past. And hopefully now with a set 5 that, is going to be out there for 4 quarters, that comes into play, and hopefully that can be a big time solution going forward. And maybe that's what they were talking about with the miscommunication, because you had guys rotating in and out and just never got that chemistry going. So hopefully they can, fix that error and give Jameis some time. And because when he has time, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks, in this league, and he can really play well when he's, got a good rhythm going and really understands what to do with the football. And I think that's going to be vastly improved this year, especially with the mechanics and, the coaching staff that he has in place with Byron Leftwich and Clyde Christensen. So I think that will help him. And then defensively, I thought the defense was just going to be better because of Todd Bowles. I mean, just the aggressive scheme and letting these guys play fast and play physical.
Fundamentals.
And just let them have fun instead of thinking too much. And instead they're just going out there and play and attack and hit. So I think that will help them, tremendously. And that's why I was kind of surprised that, they added so much to the secondary. But I do like the additions that they made. Sean Bunting is a guy that can really play press man. Same thing with Jamel Dean. Mike Edwards is probably one of the better safeties coming out of this class. I think he's really smart and really
I love that
player.
pick. Mike, that was one of the guys that I was really happy about.
Right. Yeah, I was kind of surprised he was still available. So that was a good addition. I thought they were all 3 of them were really good additions. I think Jamel Dean's probably the farthest away from being productive, this season. I think he's more of a next year solution, but it's just interesting because with this new scheme, instantly you thought the secondary that they already had was going to be better because the more aggressive play that allows quarterbacks to not just sit back. Now they have to get rid of the ball quicker. So really that's going to make your weakness a better, not a liability to say the least. And now you've added so much depth that now it could possibly be a strength. Yeah, it could be a strength for you, which is always a good thing. And really you're going to bring out the best and what you had the year before, because these guys are going to be fighting for jobs. So.
Yeah. We've been watching guys play 10, 20, 30, 60, 80 yards off the ball. And now you got guys being aggressive, hunting for the ball, jumping routes, that kind of thing. That's, that's what I love about football, when you can see plays like that. I know you're not always going to see that in the scheme. You will see some plays where guys play off. But again, this team, I think they have a lot of talent. They've really increased the speed on this team. And I think the one thing that really hurt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year was fundamentals, wrapping up and making tackles. You've got a tackle. You've got somebody dead to rights 5 yards behind the line. You've got a 5-yard loss, but instead it turns into a 10-yard gain because they can't wrap up and tackle. So I think little things like that, just the devil's in the details. And I think when you got a Bruce Arians who's turned over the role of offense to Byron Leftwich, turned over the role to Todd Bowles to defense, and he can work on the details. I think that's what's going to make this team a lot better than what you saw. I know that Dirk Cutter had the opportunity to do that, and it just didn't work out the way that it wanted to. I think he was still joined at the hip with the offense, and he wanted a lot more say in it. I know it hasn't come out publicly, but there you could tell that you could see his fingerprint on a lot of the offensive plays at times. So again, you've got a lot of teachers on this team, guys that are going to teach you, okay, this is what I need you to do, and this is why you need to do what you're doing. And that's going to make these players better. Teachers, not just coaches, but teachers, and being able to explain in depth, this is what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to this season. I really am. It's not all doom and gloom for me. I realize that JPP may be out. The guy that gave you 12 sacks, or 12 and a half, or what? But I understand. But it's time for guys to step up, younger guys to come in, and let's see what they can do. Carl Nassib, Carl Nassib is a guy that I really expect big things from him if he can stay healthy. Devin White, again, here's another guy that after watching his film, listening to some of his interviews, I'm actually excited to see him. We've got a quarterback. We've got our quarterback on defense. Let's see what our quarterback on defense is going to do. So little things like that, I think, are going to be very important. And consistency, and as you mentioned, accountability is going to be huge. And I've heard some people say that it's cliche to say accountability, but we haven't had it. We just haven't had it. You can say whatever you want to about it, but the Bucs just haven't had it.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I agree with a lot of those things. And, that's what keeps me optimistic about this year is the coaching staff and really, like you just said, I mean, just putting these guys in position to be successful. And, hopefully we'll see something different, starting with the preseason and training camp. And that's really, you can kind of get a feel for the team. So hopefully, those positive vibes are rolling through training camp, and we can really start to see something brewing before week 1. I mean, they got a very tough schedule, a lot of road travel. So they're going to have to be really mentally tough, and hopefully we start seeing that, just building a mental toughness throughout the roster. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they, who comes up as far as these roster battles that are going to, pop up, and we'll get more in depth as we get closer to that time. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be different, that's for sure. And at least we hope it's different. It's got to be about wins and losses, like you said, and hopefully it's more than 5, and we can push for 9 or 10 or 11. But yeah, I'm excited. This is kind of the down period, so now it's a good time to kind of get away from football and just have fun during the summer. But at the same time, you're still studying and seeing what this roster could potentially look like. But yeah, it's going to be fun because you have new schemes on both sides of the ball and a lot of different, just different things that are going to come through.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really excited about. Again, for me, this is all about the unknown. This is we don't know what Bruce Arians is going to do. We don't know how he's going to line everybody up. But I can tell you right now, Bruce Arians is a teacher. If you've listened to his interviews, he talks about the coaches. He wants coaches to become head coaches. This is what he's grooming them for. So he's teaching them. Right. They're going out and putting their best foot forward. and with these players, and this is what we can expect from them. So again, my friend, I'm excited for this season. I want to see what these coaches can do. I think if I had to look at this team top to bottom, I think what they do with Jameis Winston is probably the thing that I will be watching the closest, because you had a previous coaching staff. They weren't 100% on board with Jameis Winston. Say whatever you want to about it, blah, blah, blah.
It showed.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you've got a new coach that's come in. He's 100% all in. Let's see what happens with Jameis Winston. Let's see if he can get Jameis Winston pointed in the right direction, because everybody that I've talked to and I've, listened to, heard about, nobody has had anything negative to say about Bruce Arians. And he's helped so many people in their careers. Look at Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell went from Arizona and he's gone over to Jacksonville, and he's helped that defense immensely. So these guys out there to compete for that NFC South championship. And that's the one thing you'll hear me talking about it. I've got a Buc What You Heard NFC South championship shirt designed already, and I'm ready to roll it out if the Bucs can win it all. So that's just kind of where my head's at right now.
No, I agree with that. And, the one thing I say about Bruce Arians is he is a winner, and the guy knows how to win games. He's shown it. He's proven it. He's been to Super Bowls. He's won Super Bowls.
What is your hashtag? Winners win?
Winners win. So, he's definitely one of them. Yeah, he's definitely one of them. And, if this guy can't get it done for the Bucs, I don't know who will. So I like it from that standpoint. I think he's going to do whatever he can to be successful right away. Like he says, he's not about rebuilding, he's reloading. So, we're going to find out quickly. I think he's got some really talented pieces on this team. The main thing is are we going to be lucky enough to, avoid those key injuries?
Yeah.
It looks like we already have one, but, can we avoid, the key injuries to our star players throughout the team? And hopefully we can develop some depth along the way with his player development. So, we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a fun season, I believe, and it'll definitely be entertaining with Bruce Arians at the helm.
Yeah, most definitely. So if I had to ask you, and this is before anything really gets jumping off, if there's one player, and I mentioned Jameis Winston, for you that you're really closely watching, who would that player be? And you just kind of want to see their growth, whether it's a player that we've already had or a new player. Who would that be?
Yeah, I'll give you I'll give you two players, one on offense and one on defense. I think Ronald Jones on offense at running back, I think he is definitely someone to watch, and hopefully he can take that next step and really get comfortable and be the running back that we saw at USC, because he has talent. It's not a talent issue. So hopefully he can get some confidence. And then defensively, it's got to be Vernon Hargreaves. Vernon Hargreaves, I think, has to take that next step, become that corner that we expected. Playing press man, that's his strength. That's what he did at Florida. Aggressive style blitzing defense, forcing quarterbacks to get rid of the ball early. He can jump routes and really show off that footwork that he, has and has been special at doing when he's playing aggressive and really getting after the football. So hopefully, that guy takes the next step. I could name some others, but yeah, Ronald Jones and VH3 are really two guys I'm going to be keeping close eyes on.
Okay. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see how they all do. I guess for me, another person that I will definitely be looking for myself, outside of Jameis Winston, is Noah Spence. I was very frustrated with how they utilized Noah Spence after his second injury. And I really feel like he's a guy that hasn't forgotten how to play football. They should have found a way. When you have that kind of speed on the field, when you have that kind of get off on the field, there should be a way to get him out there to make plays. And I really believe that Noah Spence is that guy on on defense that I will be watching for to see if they can make those moves. I know with the defense that the Bucs have been playing, you've seen mostly off coverage, and you've drafted a lot of guys, MJ Stewart, some of your other guys that are man press guys, but they've been having to learn how to play this off coverage. So again, it's one of those things. I hope that these guys can adjust to this new defense. And I think that we'll get the most out of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you'll have guys moving forward, instead of backwards, and I think that's always easier to play, especially when you have guys coming downhill and really, just getting after the football. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. These guys really weren't attacking the football to force turnovers in previous years, and I think that's something we will definitely see this year. I mean, that's going to be a big emphasis on getting the football knocked out and making plays and scoring points on defense. I think is going to be critical as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity. And with JPP, like I said, I hope he can get well. Yeah. I mean, I don't wish injury on anybody, but at the same time, I think this is going to be an opportunity for some player to step up and put himself in a position to succeed. We've seen players that have.
You got Shaq.
Go ahead.
You got Shaq Barrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Shaq Barrett that you signed, and he's obviously has been wanting an opportunity. So I think he could easily be that guy that takes that next step and become, a pretty high sack producer. I mean, he's got the skill set. So yeah, I mean, him, Noah Spence, all these guys, Anthony Nelson that they just drafted, Carl Nassib, same thing. Even a Will Golston could take a step in production because this is a better fit for him defensively. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they all fit, and hopefully they take the next step.
Yeah. And I guess probably the biggest thing for me to be watching here is a lot of guys that have been with the Bucs, how they do, how they progress. And this will tell you a lot about the previous coaching staff if you see them start to flourish in this new offense or defense. This will give you a lot of insight as to what they were playing as opposed to what they are playing in now.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, just with the player development. Like, if you go back to, our past drafts, I mean, what rookie really has taken that next step forward and really gotten better after year after year after year? I mean, maybe you could say Levante David, but really he's been just kind of staying pat and really just been on a plateau. I mean, has there been any guy that really has gotten better, year after year after year? I mean, you really can't say that.
Except for Mike Evans.
I mean, maybe Mike Evans
is a freak of nature.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mike Evans. Yeah, Mike Evans, but that's about it. I mean, really, no one's really taken that next step forward. Ali Marpet is consistent, but there's still things he can be better at. So, yeah, I mean, that's something we hope for, that these guys get better as we go along here.
Yeah, most definitely. Dude, I am so glad to have you back. I mean, I'm glad to be talking football. There hasn't really been a lot. There hasn't been a lot going on. And I think what's really hindered this season too is the salary cap. But the good news is, if we look at the salary cap for next year, it's going to be a whole lot better. This is the only dip that I can see. If you guys go to, what is that, salarycaps.com or something like that, they talk about all the NFL salary caps, and they said 2019 was going to be probably the only dip for the Tampa Bay Bucs, and everything moving forward should be fine. And, with us having cap issues and having to re-sign certain players, that tells me that there is talent on this team. So many years past, I mean, you can go back through the decades. There have been players where they just weren't good enough to sign and you let them walk. They just weren't good enough to pay that money to. But fortunately for us, since Jason Light's been here, we've got players that, hey, we got to pay them. We got to keep them because, you're not going to get that kind of return if you go and bring somebody else in. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I think they brought in some players and re-signed some players, and I have high expectations. I think that you've got some young, hungry players out there that want to make a difference, And I think they're going to come out there and do it, man. I really do. I'm excited for this Bucs team. I have high expectations, and we're talking NFC South Championship. I'm not talking 5-5, 5-11. I'm not talking 8-8.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Bucs playing for the NFC South, playing against the Saints, playing against the Panthers, playing against the Falcons, but just getting out there and, hey, we can win this. We can be the 2019 NFC South champions.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna find out right away how good they are. You know, after they play San Francisco. Yeah, they play Carolina on a Thursday night game. So that's gonna tell you a lot about the team right there. Because I mean, Thursday night football hasn't been kind to the Bucs, and you know, if they can find a way to, you know, win that game or at least look impressive and win it, that will say a lot to this coaching staff and how this team is moving in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. I mean, you just got to enjoy the off season now. Really, it's, you know, you got a couple events coming up here and there, but yeah, I mean, just enjoy the process, and hopefully guys stay healthy. And then once you get into camp, really see what you have, and then you move into you know, the fun part, which is preseason and the regular season. But
yeah. And I don't know about you, but these away games, if the Bucs can be at 500 with the away games, or even come out with a winning record in the away games, that's going to be very helpful for them going into the back end of the season.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But then at the same time, I mean, there's going to be no excuses. I mean, this is your schedule. This is, you know, you knew you have to play these teams. So, you know, you just got to go out there and really, you know, dig in and try to win every one. So that's what makes the season fun. But yeah, I'm excited. I think expectations should be high. They always should be high. You should always be looking to get that top spot. So, you know, that's why they play the game.
Yep, most definitely. Hey, I want to get your final thoughts before we jump out of here. I can't believe it's been an hour already, but I always enjoy talking with you, my co-host. I mean, you are one of the cogs that makes this wheel run, and I appreciate your insight on stuff. And, you know, there have been times where you set me straight and talk me off the ledge, where I let my emotions get the best of me, where I just get so frustrated. But again, here we are, new season. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are putting themselves in a position to play some of these games, and we're going to see how they do. So want to get your final thoughts. We'll jump on here next week. Hopefully you'll have time, and, you know, we'll talk some more.
Yeah. It's always fun, you know, just talking Bucs football. I mean, this is our hobby, our just, you know, passion, really. It's just fun thing to jump into, and we just really want to see this team do well. And, you know, I just encourage fans to, you know, don't freak out, you know, just enjoy the off season, enjoy your summer, and just get ready for a fun year. I really think this team is going to be different. I'm not sure how many games they're going to win, but I just feel like it's going to be a better overall result as far as, you know, just top to bottom. I think both sides of the ball are going to play better. And I think you're going to have more complete games. And, you know, like I said earlier, Bruce Arians knows how to win games. He's going to figure it out. You know, so I'm excited. I think all of you guys should be excited. And really just, I can't wait to, you know, get closer to the season. Then we can really get into the nitty gritty and break it down even more. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And, yeah, go Bucs, and really just can't wait to just get things rolling again. I mean, get into that rhythm.
Yeah, most definitely. And for me, I want to shout out everybody. You know, just do the roll call in the chat. Cali Buc the World 2.0. Appreciate all your insight here. Antonio Santiago, Brent Mulberry from Pewtercast. Forgive me. Don't kick me. I apologize, Brent. Actually met Brent in person. He was good enough to stop by. I met him and his wonderful family. Brent, you're appreciated. Thank you for checking us out. Great content if you get a chance to check out Pewtercast. along with Real Bucs Talk. I think very quality content, and it's great that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have people like these guys supporting them. So great content. Stephen Pryor, again, thank you so much for commenting here. Lane Johnston, usual suspect here in the chat, always have something good to say. Rarely Even's been following Buc What You Heard since the beginning, and I really appreciate him just being able to come in and contribute. Clutch Sports is a normal contributor in the chat. Great content. I mean, if you get a chance to follow Clutch Sports on Twitter, you may want to please reach out to them and talk about just at least follow them. Let's see. Demand Amazement 717. Let's see. Amazement 717. And I think I got to everybody. Brandon Fuller. I didn't forget you, man. Brandon Fuller, thank you so much. You're appreciated. Again, just all your comments and just getting in the chat and making the chat great. Neil L, what's going on? Thank you so much for checking us out. You're appreciated as well. Guys, we're all Bucs fans. We may not all have the same perspective on the Bucs, but at the end of the day, wins and losses, we want those wins. When you go to games and you're consistently going to games, buying merchandise, watching games on TV, whatever, you're supporting this team, and you're as important whether you have whether you disagree with what I believe or you're along with me for this. We're all Bucs fans, and you're appreciated. So that's kind of how we have to look at this. I want to see the Bucs win the NFC South Championship for starters, and that's not even getting into the playoffs. But to me, that's a goal. That's a attainable goal, and I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can achieve that goal if everybody's focused and you get, as you mentioned, 4 quarters of football, going out there and playing their best game and putting that all out there. So again, it's one of those things that I'm a Bucs fan. We all are, and we all need to come together, man, because I there's so many divisions, so there's so much Bucs content out there. And a
lot of podcasts.
Yeah, a lot of podcasts. And at the end of the day, ultimately we want the Bucs to win. And I think a lot of people have lost track of that. But again, this is what we need to see, and this is what we want to see. So as far as I'm concerned, NFC South Championship is something that I'm looking forward to. And again, getting to the playoffs, playing and beating some teams and advancing, because we need to bring that back to Raymond James Stadium. But that's pretty much where I'm at with this here. And you guys again are greatly appreciated. And you'll see me again next week. I may jump on sometimes I get bored and I want to get on and say some stuff, but I may jump on, throughout the week. Please, if you get a chance, not just Buc What You Heard, Real Bucs Talk. The podcast is lit. If you're not following it, you really need to be following it. Very educational. I don't say just listening to it just for Bucs content, but educating yourself on how the game works. And Michael Pless and Mark Ramirez do an amazing job. And again, if you get a chance to follow them, that's what you really need to be doing, is following these guys. So I can't stress that enough. You guys have been awesome, and I appreciate you. And we're gonna jump on out of here, but I just wanted to make sure I hit up everybody in the chat, because every week that you guys are on, you guys are appreciated, and I don't ever want that to stop. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, Antonio Santiago, thank you so much. Ronde Barber is going to be inducted into the Ring of Honor, and I really believe that that's long overdue. There are some players, Simeon Rice and Ricky Bell, James Wilder. Those are players that I feel should be in the Ring of Honor as well. Again, Simeon Rice should be in the Hall of Fame, should have been in the Hall of Fame before some of these other guys. But, I guess it is what it is. And eventually he'll get in, according to Ira Kaufman, if you believe that. So we'll just have to wait and see, be patient and see how this all goes. But I want to put that out there. Ronde Barber, I'm proud of you. Good stuff, man. And never forget how they shut down the dump when they went to the Super Bowl. And I'm telling you what, Ronde Barber was that guy with the whole Rob Van Dam thing, pointing at his name. I love that. So again, nothing but love. And I'm so excited for that. But again, we're out of here. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you so much, Antonio. I appreciate that. Eagles killer. There you go. All right, guys. That's pretty much it for me. Michael Pless, my co-host as usual. Thank you so much, and you have a good night.